Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Let Me Explain. I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
I'm Justin.
So in this show, basically what we do is each person, we go around and take turns. Somebody has to give a report or like a class book report, as it were, on a topic of their choosing. Dave, you're up this week. What is your topic?
It was kind of tough for me to kind of settle on a thing, since when I was asked to get something together, I couldn't really decide on much anything. That was until I heard the announcement, or heard that the release of a particular game was coming along, known as God of War. But, in my case, it mostly reminded me of a particular game that I managed to beat within the last couple of days, known as Asura's Wrath. So, on whole, Asura's Wrath is kind of difficult to categorize as a game as it kind of sits. Because on the one hand, it's action-filled, kind of a beat-em-up style, and fairly good for the most part. Gameplay-wise, though, it's kind of bare bones. If you're looking for a spectacle, though, it's definitely something that I could recommend. Also, additionally, I'll most likely be spoiling the entire plot of this game, so for anyone who's interested, stop listening now. Take what I said about it and go and check it out for yourself.
So it's like a PS2 game, or what game is it?
Oh, with this guy, it was released around late February into March of 2012 for the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Gotcha. I wouldn't be too surprised if it managed onto the PlayStation Store or any sort of thing like that for download, so you can get on the PS4 or other sorts of things like that. Okay. And it was also published by Capcom. So, the essential story of this is taking a couple particular characters from Hindu and Buddhist mythology and having this group of 8 deities protecting the world from the Goma, or evil spirits in the world that love to destroy things.
Sorry, you said Goma. I was thinking of the one boss from Zelda.
And it's spelled the same way, but it's most best expressed as an evil entity that just wants to destroy things, which look like animals, which is kind of an interesting sort of way to sort of see it. But anywho's, it takes kind of a traditional old sort of style and mixes in a whole bunch of cyberpunkness for all the deities and whatnot. But the basis of the story is based on Asura, the deity of wrath.
That's
just
what it means.
Just doing his job, beating the ever-loving snot out of all the Goma, and trying to destroy the evilness that lives inside the planet, with varying degrees of success. So, the 8 generals that he works with decide to come up with a plan. By betraying Asura, by having him be blamed by killing their emperor, so that they could take all the power, to use that power to try and destroy the thing themselves without Asura's help. By killing his wife, kidnapping his daughter, and sentencing him to hell.
That's not very nice.
Yeah, no. But through his sheer determination and just wrath of everything that happened, Asura isn't going to have that. So after taking a couple 1,000-year nap as just a statue, he decides to wake up and exact his revenge on all the deities that scorned him.
Why did he take a nap?
I mostly sort of thought of it as just sort of a case of being sent to hell kind of leaves you petrified.
So it sounds a lot like God of War.
Ish.
Not
kind
to
of God of War-ish.
Not to a certain extent. With all the stuff that it sort of does, it expands on Asura's character, which, first introducing him to us, all he does is punch the ever-loving snot out of everything.
Which is what Kratos does.
Well, with blades and shit.
Well, okay. He gets a knife eventually.
Well, a couple blades and shit.
That was a joke, Justin.
Nah. And I sort of agree with that since I've also played the God of War series to a certain extent. And with the first one, it kept sort of the basis of God of War acting as an actual Greek tragedy, where the hero of the story does something terrible, tries to go to the gods to repent for his sins, but can't do so, and thus takes the only one option that he can see and kills himself to escape the grief of what he's done. And the first God of War does this until the last seconds of the game, where they actually make him the God of War, which is the title of the story. And the interesting thing is, either from the culture that Asura's Wrath comes from, or how they decided to do the story, that doesn't happen with Asura. Asura is very wrathful and gets very pissed. One of the biggest things about this character is that with his eyes, they're completely whited out when the story essentially begins, showing that he is essentially blind by his own wrath and only sees one particular goal in mind. But yet, even with that, he doesn't act like any of the other deities within the story, where they exist through the prayer and souls of the people that worship them. Where Asura doesn't exactly like to be worshipped by people. He finds any person that's on their knees praying to these deities that he served pathetic. But through all the courses of the game, and quite some interesting spectacles, he manages to eradicate and defeat just about every single enemy that comes up against him, as well as his old comrades. Mostly with being pushed to several different levels of anger, and mostly shown with Asura getting several additional limbs.
So his like superpower is that he's
a deity. But the main aspect of these deities is
like he gets an extra arm coming out of his chest or some shit.
An additional 4 arms, more so out of his back.
But so
not out of the chest.
It would be better if he had just like one arm protruding out of his chest.
There is a case, though, that he is so infuriated that he gains 2 additional arms, about quadruple the size of him, enough to destroy an entire space armada within a couple of seconds.
Isn't like the Bayonetta, like, hand things that come
Just
out
about that size, yes.
Okay.
But of course, the reason that happened was, when coming back to life, he ran into a young girl, where, within most sort of circumstances, either would run for her life, or would start praying to this supposed deity. But through her circumstances in life, mistakes Asura for her own father. So...
Wait. I have a question.
Go ahead.
At this point, does he have more than 2 arms?
He looks like a regular person.
Okay, good.
But he was essentially a face stuck within a rock, so as a statue. But burst out of the rock he was trapped in, and came back to being the deity he was.
Oh, no, okay, but when, like, this little kid sees him, he looks like just a dude?
It looks like a person, but burst out of a rock.
Does she see him burst out of a statue?
Yes.
Then how in the fuck? You go like, oh yeah, Dad does that all the time.
From the backstory of the little girl, her father was a warrior, and did those sorts of things, but she also understood that it was a deity. But within the certain time that she was there, she sort of thought, okay, this deity came back when I had these strong feelings and was praying for my father. Is this deity sort of come to assist me as my father sort of would? In that sort of case. But through this interaction with the girl and the incident of Asura losing his daughter, he sort of imprints a bit onto her. And then the girl dies from the hands of the other deities, which sends him into a blind rage and completely destroys the armada. But after that happens, he also loses his form and essentially becomes a brittle skeleton of himself. And then it was the second time he died.
Wait, so I just have to clear this up. So there's a space armada.
Yes.
In a game that takes place, I'm assuming, in the past.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
He did sleep a while.
The aspect of all the deities sort of takes a more high-tech sort of look to everything. The deities reside in a giant space station up in space that looks like a person.
Holy shit.
The game is quite a spectacle.
Oh boy.
Okay.
But through all of the events happening, he manages to defeat all the deities and get back to his daughter until, surprise, aside from his own fury, there was another being that appeared to him when he was first in hell that looked like a spider that told him, are you really going to let yourself be in hell with all these people taking your daughter and kidnapping them from you? Why aren't you mad? Go do something about it. And that spider decides to reveal himself as the actual god of the world.
Is a spider.
First appears as a spider, but then appears as a giant man with several arms.
And ends up becoming the final boss or something.
Pretty much.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So, this god's specific goal was to try and find an heir to rule the world after he finished existing and went off to be the god of another world. So, within your own sorts of minds, if you were strong enough to prove to yourself to a god that you were strong enough to be a god of a world, would you accept it?
I don't understand why God is just like, fuck off, fuck this planet, I'm gonna go make a new one.
Yeah, this plan's fucked. Yeah, I'm out of here.
Well, actually, no, I kind of do understand that. Continue on.
Well, Asura is not going to have that. Because throughout the story, the reason why he's so wrathful of everything is, besides the betrayal that he experienced, he is a father. And his love for his daughter is so absolute that if anything makes his daughter cry, he's going to punch the ever-loving snot out of it. So, throughout the course of the story, and his daughter being kidnapped, this god is essentially the one specific person that did this. So, Asura's job is punching God in the face for making his daughter cry.
Okay.
And, you know, the whole kidnapping thing.
Pretty much. But it goes through the story of Asura would do just about anything to make sure that his daughter had a happy life, despite the fact that all he could do was punch the ever-loving snot out of anything, because he's not exactly a decent father to actually get a job and provide in that sort of sense.
So why doesn't he go into boxing?
I'm not sure. They didn't bother coming up with a sport.
I don't know, they put God and Asura in a boxing ring.
Or, like, join the UFC.
But at the end of things, Asura beats God, which essentially created him in a certain sort of way. So Asura dies by killing God, just to allow his daughter to live.
And what's left?
Yeah, because, like, if you kill God, doesn't everything cease to exist?
I don't know, maybe it's still there, but
It's
what's
just
left?
the fact that the world exists without a god.
Okay.
But wouldn't there be more destruction if, you know... I mean, like, what is he punching other than, you know, these deities? Is he destroying buildings and shit, too? Or...
There is the concern that the moon gets sliced in half, but that was one of the other deities that he fought.
So
that is a bit of a concern.
So the tide's fucked, too.
Yeah.
So the planet's fucked.
I think it's kind of a case that it's not really brought too much into the question, since the world's kind of the enemy, and the world has to kind of suffer through a whole lot of things, but on whole, it's not too much of a concern. It's mostly the punishment of how much Asura can take. And let's see, with being completely crushed by a colossal titan, essentially getting finger poked by a giant titan the size of a planet, getting a sword run through him, which is run through the entire planet, as well as being blasted by several giant fuck you lasers.
Like I said, what's left of the planet?
Yeah, it seems like he's floating on like a pebble now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a case of you'd have to kind of see the actual game to sort of get it, but it's one of those things where you have to separate your disbelief of things. But
Like Gurren Lagann.
yeah, pretty much. But to a certain extent, it was one of the games that I really enjoyed for all the story that it did. with the concept of God of War you brought up, after the first God of War, when it went into God of War 2, you question why anyone bothers to work with Kratos, since everything he does is either for a selfish reason or just to kill.
Or get revenge or whatever, maybe.
But I literally have never played a God of War game.
I've played only a little bit of the first game. I haven't played too much into the series.
Well, with the first one, saying that it acted more as a Greek tragedy, where, sure, Kratos goes around and kills all these particular things, but it's for the reason of the gods said that they'll take away this horrible trauma of me killing my entire family away from my mind, so it's not completely tormenting me, so I just need to kill the God of War. So he does that, and it's like, are you going to do the thing? It's like, great, now we need you to do this thing. Well, fuck you guys! And then jumps off a cliff.
So, wait, okay. I know this is off topic, but now I'm confused about God of War. So, the gods are like, do this for us and we'll clear your mind of this trauma.
Yes.
And then they make him more powerful, and then they're like, no, fuck you.
Nah, pretty much.
How does that make any fucking sense? You made him a god and then you pissed him off more?
Maybe they were planning to betray him from the start.
Yeah, but then, like, if you're planning to betray someone... Justin, if I want to fuck you over and steal 10 grand from you, I don't hand you a sword first.
Well, you're trying to get me to do something with the sword.
Yeah, but
for
like...
you.
Okay, whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Generally. Maybe the gods have some things that they want done out of, like, their own selfishness. I don't know. But they can't do it themselves, so they get him to do it. It's not like he's going to come back to us and punch us in the face.
Yeah, no, of course not. He's not,
because
like...
they'll be paying him, or getting rid of him if we deem him too much of a threat.
Yeah, he hasn't demonstrated a propensity for violence at all.
Now that's a fairly decent question, and again, it could be the fact that I'm only paraphrasing little things. I haven't exactly completed all of the God of War games, even up to the new one, or any sort of that stuff. But from what I know, the Kratos from the first game is definitely a heck of a lot different than what Kratos is in the second or third game. Because there's literally a section, I believe in the third game, but essentially a part where you're trapped in a room with a whole bunch of civilians that are running for their lives from these particular things happen, and you either have to kill them until a way opens up, or with how wide your attacks go, a whole bunch of innocent citizens die.
So to go back to your Asura's Wrath or whatever.
It sort of made me think that this game was actually amazing for all the particular stuff it did, but with how little of gameplay there actually kind of was with it, it's a little hard to actually recommend this as an actual game. It would better to be sort of say, hey, if you heard of Asura's Wrath, head onto YouTube and watch all the cutscenes.
So it sounds like the kind of game I would really like.
Well, let me see.
Because it's mostly cutscenes.
Well, let me see.
Probably not. If the gameplay isn't as up to par, then...
Well, no, then I'll get pissed.
Yeah. Well, let me just give you a sort of an idea of one of the first deities that you fight against. He is a larger gentleman by the name of Wyzen, known as the deity of violence.
Okay.
So with first waking up and running into this deity, Wyzen starts going into this big spiel about how all the 7 deities are doing amazing work and questioning why Asura is bothering to come back anyway. Where a little prompt comes up that says, "Shut Wyzen up."
Do you stab him in the neck?
No, you essentially just dash up to him and punch him in the face, sending him flying back several feet.
Okay. I'm on board so far.
It's a little... Every little bit counts, I guess.
You then go into a fight sequence with him where you defeat him and knock him off a cliff. Where he comes back as a giant 50-story giant version of himself, and you have to fight him again as that version.
So, like God of War, then.
A little bit.
Having, like, giant monsters and all that you fight against.
A little bit like Shadow of the Colossus, pretty much.
No, I wouldn't say Shadow of the Colossus. Unless you actually climb on his back and stab him in the weak point.
Oh no, you just beat the ever-loving snot out of him.
Don't bring up Shadow of the Colossus. I have controversial opinions on that game.
Duly noted. But anyways, yes. You essentially do a Looney Tunes episode, punch into him so much that it literally sees an indent of you going far back into him, and you send him slingshotting into space. He then gains a stupid amount of power and becomes the size of the world.
Suddenly this is Gurren Lagann now.
And then he decides to defeat you by literally booping you. And then you defeat him after a consecutive amount of punches.
Oh, he doesn't produce a drill out of his arm or something?
Oh no, by this time he's produced 6 arms and is punching the ever-loving snot out of this figure, but while doing so,
it's still ridiculous.
5 of the arms break, but with the final last bit of strength he has, he punches with his last fist, causing the giant deity to explode.
The punch made him explode. What did it do? Punch his finger till he exploded?
Well, it's kind of a case of the energy from the last punch surged through his finger, up to his arm, up to the rest of his body, which caused him to explode, because he just couldn't handle the energy.
Okay. Sure.
I don't even know what to say.
One of the other particular things about this game is that it is one hell of a spectacle.
Yeah, you've mentioned that.
But anywho, that kind of explains my experience with Asura's Wrath and kind of the idea of a hateful character that's somewhat likable for all the particular crazy things that he does.
Likable because...
He a dad.
Well, that would be his redeeming factor, except he's very angry and wants to get revenge and everything because of all the shit that's been thrown at him, because... Yeah.
Bah, he a dad. They stole his data.
Yeah, that doesn't justify genocide.
Not really.
Well, there's also the betrayal, the fact that his wife got killed by those same particular people.
Still not justifying genocide.
Of deities, maybe. Because they're the ones that are responsible for this, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, okay, but if he's getting in these other fights with these giant deities, ain't no way nobody else is dying.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people die, but it's mostly upon the fact of most of the deities do it. Asura, within the entire game, isn't really seen hurting any particular people who aren't deities. Or Goma. Many Goma die within the game. But aside from that, it left me interested for what they're going to be doing with this new God of War, since A, it's not exactly Greek anymore, and being based more in Norse mythology.
Yeah, that's a bit different. I heard it's good, though.
No, I've been hearing a little bits of praise and whatnot about it, but it's kind of like, yeah, Kratos may be older, but is he still the same hateful person from the other games? I'm not sure.
I love that.
But nevertheless, that's kind of me explaining my experience with Asura's Wrath and kind of the idea of hateful characters within those sorts of games.
Okay, is that the entirety of your report now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool. Justin, did you have any questions for Dave?
So it's like an action beat 'em up in a way?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. I see. And like, is it any good of gameplay?
Yeah, kind of bare bones, honestly. They give you basic attack, heavy attack, the ability to shoot magical fist things at enemies, like bullets.
Compared to Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, how would you scale that kind of game?
It's on the low end. It is made from the same engine as Street Fighter V, which I believe was released at the time.
Oh, it's more like a fighter or what?
With it being Capcom, they did put in DLC afterwards where you actually fight Street Fighter characters.
That's weird. But okay, it sounds like what Capcom would do.
But it's more kind of an open arena setting, either for fighting a group of enemies, fighting a giant enemy in just a single stage, or fighting another deity character within a fighting arena.
Okay.
Either that or on-rail shooters.
On-rail shooting?
Well, there's the cases of Asura is falling towards an enemy and he's shooting giant energy blasts at them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then. Do you have anything left to add, Dave?
I think just sort of curious, with everything that I kind of said, would you take the time to actually take a look at Asura's Wrath, either playing the game or checking out the cutscenes and whatnot, or is it kind of a case of, yeah, this is kind of too weird?
It's just not for me.
Nah.
Justin, what about you?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really gotten through God of War. I kind of stopped partway through, so I mean, maybe or maybe not. I don't know.
You got farther than me. I didn't finish installing it.
I played through like a whole stage.
I
That's
bought
like
it.
all I did.
Well, at least you took down the Hydra, supposedly.
I bought
Yeah.
it when it was on sale for like $4, and then I was like, I'll install this later. And that was a year ago.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Right.
Alrighty, so Dave, if you don't have anything left to add, I think that's going to wrap it up for this time. Alright, so I'm going to give a little tease for what I'm doing next time. So, our story is going to start a few hundred years ago, and it's going to start off the coast of Nova Scotia.
Okie doke.
And it's going to be a good time. Well,
Good?
it'll be good, but it might not be entirely fulfilling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be it for this time. I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
I'm Justin.